You're listening to the Sisters-in-Laws podcast, a faith-based podcast that spotlights Black women who replace silence with storytelling around pregnancy and infant loss and infertility. Black women experience miscarriage and stillbirth 4 to 5 times more likely than white women, according to the NIH and CDC. Whether you've experienced a miscarriage, infant loss, stillbirth, are trying to conceive, or have an infertility diagnosis, you will learn about resources and strategies to heal, gain clarity, peace, hope, and find an empowering path forward after loss. I'm your host, Erica M. McAfee, and you will hear me interview sisters-in-laws who have healed from such a painful and traumatic experience by sharing their testimonies and stories to inspire and help others turn their pain into their purpose. Now let's get started. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay, so my name is Sonya Dixon, and I am a middle school science teacher. I also am an author, and I am one of the founders and executive directors of LAND, which is a nonprofit that is geared towards just basically fighting the disparities that exist in the neonatal and maternal health fields, in particular, those things that affect women and families of color.
Absolutely. But you have a story. So I would love for you to take us back on your journey to motherhood and share with us your motherhood story.
So before I start, and I was like, wait a minute, I was going to really control myself, and I started crying immediately. But I definitely want to thank you so much for providing this platform for just women in particular, but especially women of color. I know for me, this is like a true manifestation moment. So many years ago, so many times, for 5 years, I've cried and I've listened to your podcast, and I've always felt like eventually I would be on here and that my story would be able to impact other women. I didn't know when because I went through so many hurdles, but I always felt like one day I would be sitting here and I would be telling my story and it would impact another woman. So I want to tell you, thank you so much for just providing hope and giving a platform that provides hope for women that are dealing with infertility and child loss, because it's a really dark place. And so many days, like your podcast made me feel like I was at the table having conversations with women that went through things, and it gave me hope when I really felt hopeless. And I'm sure you hear it all the time, but just the creation of this space is huge and it's big, and it has saved lives and it has changed lives. So as I sit here, just sitting here, it makes me emotional because so many times I dreamed of being able to be here, but just going through so many hurdles and not being able to see the light. So to be here, I have to start off and I have to thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm very, very much so humbled by folks who are continuously listening to the podcast. And I know that it is a part of my purpose and journey. And I think that for those who are listening, who think that you can't get to this other side of your healing where you're able to share, you can. Sonya is a representation of that. Like, it is possible to get to a place where you want to share your story, to be able to impact others and help them heal. So no, I don't take it for granted. Thank you for sharing that with me. And I'm always so deeply humble and so deeply grateful that this is my purpose project from my pain. So I would love for you to share your story.
So my name is Sonya Dixon, and I am originally from Chicago, Illinois, but I currently reside outside of Baltimore, Maryland. I am married and I have a daughter. So my story starts way, way back in the gap. But I wasn't really sure about what was really going on with me at the time. But it was just the beginning of, I'll say, a whirlwind. So naturally, girls, we go through and we get menstrual cycles. That's just something that we do. Our bodies are just designed for that. But I never naturally I never naturally received a menstrual cycle. So at the age of 16, my mom took me to the doctor, and the doctor really didn't tell me what was going on. They didn't tell me anything about PCOS or having cysts. They did tell me that they would induce my cycle. So they gave me Provera and they brought my cycle down. So all I knew is that sometimes I started my cycle late. It was medically induced. And if I don't get a cycle, all I knew was to call my doctor and just say, hey, I didn't get a cycle. Can you give me a prescription? I get some pills. And I just really thought that was normal. So I went to college, graduated from college, and I got pregnant with my daughter, and I had a normal pregnancy with her. So I got pregnant with her in 2011. Everything was fine. And I'll be honest, I was very naive pregnancy, what it consisted of. All I knew is that I was just pregnant and everything was going well. I did have a subchorionic hematoma during that pregnancy. So I remember being at home visiting in Chicago over the summer because, you know, college students over the summer, they pack their things up and they go home. So when I went home, I was bleeding out really bad. I had an episode and my parents took me to the hospital, and I actually thought, well, the way that I found out I was pregnant with my daughter was really interesting that summer because I hadn't had a cycle in so long. So I didn't have insurance at that time because they had dropped me off my mom's insurance. So I had went to a clinic that I knew about and asked them, I was like, hey, I'm here. My stomach is hurting. I haven't had a period in a few months. Can I have some Provera? It was like I just knew what to prescribe myself because I was so used to getting it. So before they could give me that, they gave me a pregnancy test. And I remember the nurse coming in and saying, Provera, you're pregnant. And I was shocked because I'm like, how could I be pregnant? I haven't had a period in like 4 months. There's no way I could be pregnant. You have to have a period in order to be pregnant. I had no clue that you could still ovulate, but not actually have a cycle. So I was just caught off guard, like this is some type of miracle because how did that happen? And even then, the nurses didn't go into detail to tell me much. So I knew I was pregnant. And then I'll say like a month later, I started bleeding really bad. And that's when my parents took me to the actual hospital. And I found out I had a subchorionic hematoma. And they were telling me that it was a 50-50 chance my daughter would survive. Like basically I was bleeding and they couldn't really tell me why, but it was threatening miscarriage. But I went back to Louisiana once the summer ended and my pregnancy proceeded and everything went fine. And I ended up having my daughter. She was due on Valentine's Day, 2000. So February 14, 2011. And I had her on February 13, 2011. So I had a 4-term pregnancy, almost to the book, everything went well. So, you know, I did it once. So I was feeling like, hey, if I ever want to get pregnant again, I mean, I went through the process, everything should be fine. So I ended up getting married to my husband and we got married in 2016. And I wasn't thinking about pregnancy, but just being happy newlyweds, we ended up getting pregnant immediately after the wedding. And I was like really sick, like I was vomiting really bad. And basically during my first pregnancy too, I just was diagnosed with just extreme vomiting, hypermesia. Like I just couldn't hold anything down. So I went through that the second time too. And I'll never forget at 14 weeks, I was washing dishes in my kitchen, talking to my best friend on the phone, and I just felt like a gush of water. And I told my friend, like, wait, like, and my friend hasn't been pregnant before. So she doesn't really know all the oohs and ahs, but she does know like some of the just common things women go through. So I told her that I had felt a gush of water and I wanted to make sure everything was okay because it was kind of really early for something like that to be happening. So I told her I would call her back. And when I went to the restroom, I had noticed that it was like wet everywhere. And of course, just scientifically, it may sound gross, but there's changes that the woman's body go through when she's pregnant, including changes related to discharge and a lot of other things that can be perceived as normal. So I called my husband and I told him that I think maybe I should just go to the hospital and get checked out because I was a little afraid. So he came and he picked me up. And honestly, at that time, I was so naive to insurance, like health insurance and what it does. I had health insurance, but I had the basic package. I did not want a lot of money coming out my check. Like I'm insured. So whatever, if something happens, I'll be okay. And I also had went with this health insurance because it had a reputation like in Baltimore City to be like a really great, reputable insurance company. And I won't say the name because my experience was negative with that company. However, I had the insurance company that was not good. I'll say in reference to my experience. And I went to a hospital that was in the county. Now, if anyone lives in the DMV area, but in particular Baltimore, there's always city versus county. So the county is viewed as the area that is like more upper class. They have more resources. The hospitals are better staffed. They have the best physicians, the best nurses in the city. They kind of associate that with being really impoverished, poor. They have physicians that are not certified, medically certified, that don't know information, that they don't have a lot of knowledge related to medical information. So when I went to the hospital in the county, I'll say also just with the way, and I kind of fell into the hype, unfortunately, but I never dissed the city hospitals, I'll say, because I still went to both hospitals. But I went to this hospital because it was closer to my house, but it was also viewed as one of the top hospitals. It was in the county. And when I went, I'll never forget, they wheeled me in the back, and the doctor, well, I'll say the technician did an ultrasound, and she looked, and I could see my actual baby. My daughter was on the ultrasound. She was moving, and they said my water had broke. And I'll never forget, it's almost like I had like heard a scream. It was like a blood curdling scream, a scream I had never heard before. And I had to take some time to process, to realize like this was really me. Like, what do you mean? My water cannot break at 14 weeks. There's no way that this should be happening so early on. And I'm watching my daughter, and she's still like moving around, but she's not moving around as much. She's not as mobile as she would be, I guess, if she had more amniotic fluid to move around in. So me and my husband was at the hospital, and they were telling me things like, well, if you don't let us induce you, you can catch a fever, you can get sepsis, you can die. She's not going to make it. It's really early. You can't make it without having amniotic fluid. But I had actually joined some groups on Facebook, and I had saw some women that actually were making it without having amniotic fluid. And they did have their water break pretty early, premature rupture of their membrane. So I know that it was possible to actually survive something like that. So they stated that they wouldn't watch me at the hospital, that I was early, that they wouldn't admit me because there was nothing they can do, but they would send me home. So I ended up going home, and things drastically took a turn. So I had to go back to the hospital, and I ended up delivering my daughter. And actually, I delivered her. She was an actual stillborn. So after that experience, I would say it was really traumatizing. I feel like the hospital was really cold. I don't feel like they really comforted me through the situation. I don't feel like they informed me of like what was happening, what my next steps were. So I just felt kind of iced out by the hospital that had this reputation of being such an amazing institution located in the county with all of these resources. And I am a college educated woman with several degrees, master degrees, and to be discriminated against in that manner was like really shocking to me. And not saying that I'm exempt from that, but it was like, even with my socioeconomic status and how hard I worked in life to have insurance to be able to cover things like that, it didn't matter. So I never really received much feedback from the hospital. I did request the actual results of the autopsy and the information for my baby, and they didn't give me much information. When I had a follow-up appointment with my doctor, she actually stated that it was a fluke, and sometimes things like that just happen to people, and it's like a 2% chance of things happening to people, and I just happened to be in that 2%. She had no explanation, but I was reading in the report, and when I read in the report, it also had mentioned something about polycystic cysts that I was never made aware of. She never even mentioned that, but that piqued my interest. So after that, I actually changed my insurance. So I upped it just a notch, and I decided that I didn't want to go with that insurance company anymore. And if anything happened, I didn't even want to go to the hospital. Like, I even see commercials with the hospital now, and I feel traumatized. Like, I don't even want to ride past the hospital. So I upped my insurance. So I was like, if I ever have another issue, I want to be treated better than the experience that I just had. So that happened. I lost my daughter. I lost her on February 6th, 2017. And I went on and I continued to try to get pregnant. And I struggled with getting pregnant. And at the time, I didn't know I had PCOS, but I ended up making an appointment with a reproductive endocrinologist. And they actually ran a panel of tests on me. And at that time, they told me I had PCOS, and they were shocked because they were stating I was pretty lean. And, I was just someone that they wouldn't think would have PCOS just based off my medical history. So they told me I had PCOS. So during that time, we struggled. So me and my husband, I convinced him to go to Shady Grove Fertility with me, which is in Baltimore. so that we could get reproductive assistance. And when I went, the doctor was like, just according to my history, with me even having my daughter, it is that I can get pregnant. It's just kind of like chasing my ovulation due to me having PCOS and not knowing when I'm going to ovulate or if I'm ovulating at all. So they helped me with ovulation, and they also gave me an injection. I gave myself an injection that I was able to take as well, and that assisted me with my follicles and coming down. And I got pregnant from actually that process. And I went between Baltimore, Shady Grove Fertility Center, and Towson. So I rotated between the two. But my doctor, Dr. McClamrock, he was really in on my history. Like, he really wanted to assist me. So I was really grateful for the assistance they offered me. But also in that pregnancy, it started off, and I still started off with bleeding. So I also had a subchorionic hematoma also during that pregnancy as well. So they were telling me that I did all this stuff and everything is fine. And implantation was okay, but just be aware that it was kind of like a threatened miscarriage due to the subchorionic hematoma, which is like a bruise they stated in the inside of your uterus, and sometimes like a bruised bleed. So that's what it would do. But it naturally healed itself during that pregnancy. So everything was going well. Everything was fine until I went and I was 12 weeks pregnant. So I went to Sinai Hospital. Now, Sinai Hospital is located in Baltimore City. And I'll be honest, they get a bad rep, not because of the doctors, but the location that they're in. And people view the location as being a really bad location. And who would want to go there? You know, people are really afraid to even pull up to the hospital. So I decided I was going to get my treatment there. I looked up the physicians there, and I don't care. Like, I'm going into the heart of the city. So I found out that I was pregnant, and at 12 weeks, my doctor actually pulled me inside of pulled me inside of his office, and he told me that he showed me a picture, which I was oblivious. I didn't have any clue about anything. He ended up showing me a picture, and the picture that he showed me was a picture of my cervix, and my cervix at 12 weeks had already started to dilate. And he was looking, and I was looking, and actually, if I'm able, he was looking, I was looking, I was going to say I actually had the picture, and on the picture, you can see my cervix starting to dilate, which freaked me totally out because I didn't even know what he was talking about. And now I had no clue about dilation. I didn't know anything about the cervix. So he told me, this is really early to start to see changes like this. Do you know what this is? And I was like, no. And he was like, your cervix is starting to dilate. Do you know what your cervix is? And I felt so ignorant because with all the knowledge that I have, no. I don't know the purpose of a cervix. I don't know why it's in there. I don't know why this is really important to me, but you seem really alarmed. So now I'm triggered. I want to learn more. And I actually found out that at 12 weeks, my cervix had already started to dilate. And dilation is something that occurs later in a pregnancy when you're about to deliver to make room for the actual baby. So for that to be occurring at 12 weeks, that was a terrible thing. So he told me that he knew a doctor that worked at Mercy Hospital, and he was top notch with the vaginal cerclages, and that he recommended me get a vaginal cerclage. So I had that appointment on a Wednesday, and by that Saturday, I was getting the vaginal cerclage. Now, I was in a whirlwind. I was caught off guard. I didn't have a clue. I just knew I was going there for a surgery, and I needed this surgery because of my cervix just acting crazy. So I came and I got the surgery, and the doctor felt really confident. My high-risk doctor, Dr. Sonaport, he's the one that recommended it. He felt confident as well. So I got the cerclage. They stated I didn't have to be on bed rest, but to kind of take it easy. So I took it easy, and I ended up actually losing my daughter. So this is my second daughter. So when I lost my first daughter, like from her loss, I kind of used her experience to kind of help me heal. I started my book company, Spoken Hearts LLC. I wrote children's books. I needed to find an outlet. So I had an outlet to kind of help me navigate through that. So this second time around, I was really caught off guard. I'll be honest. I was just like, oh my God, what is this? It happened to me once. I thought I was okay. I switched my insurance. They recommended me get the surgery. I've gotten the surgery, and like it wasn't enough. So my daughter, Chloe Noelle Dixon, she was born on October the 6th. 2019, and she bust straight through the vaginal cerclage. She came straight through. Her foot was coming through. That couldn't even hold her in. And I'll be honest, like my daughter, she was very aware that I was pregnant. I was bringing a sibling home. And I'll say, to me, that was both times were really traumatizing because I'm a teacher. So I'm around hundreds of kids. Like right now, I teach 150 kids a day. I see 4 classes of 35 students. So when I was pregnant the first time, the students saw my stomach grow. They actually knew I experienced a loss. My principal at the time had to bring in a counselor. They were destroyed. They brought flowers and things to me, but I felt so bad because I had exposed other people's kids to a subject that's so taboo, like so hurtful, like something that I should have never exposed them to. And even my own daughter. So to have let her down the second time and just remembering like the way she cried the first time and just the silent tears, the tears that she wanted to get out that she couldn't, they were just stuck. And just seeing how she coped, knowing that I had to come back home a second time and let her know that I failed was like, to me, that was like one of the most, everything was hard. It was heartbreaking, but that was something that it just took everything out of me. And then for my husband, like it was such a sacred experience even for us, because this time my daughter was born breathing. She was alive. Like she was here. It was my body that failed her. She had a heartbeat. She cried. She had breath. You know, it was just that her little tiny body couldn't sustain. And I remember when they were attempting to prep me for the funeral, to prepare for the arrangements. And I was telling my husband, I'm not doing anything. I'm not even going. So whatever they asking me to sign, I'll put my signature on. You could go to the funeral home. You can handle everything. I'm not taking it. I can't take it again. You can do it. And my husband, I will always love him because he was so strong in my anger, and he knew how angry I was. Because even during the delivery, the first time it caught me off guard and I cried and cried. The second time, to know me and my team, we threw the transvaginal cerclage. I had progesterone. Like we were having appointments to know that they had a doctor come from Mercy, and you know he's world renowned, city renowned. Like to lose in that battle, that broke me. It broke me so hard. Like my nurses and my doctors cried. They were off work and they came up on their off days to see about me. Like, and you know, there's a thin line between science and religion. They prayed with me. It was traumatic for everybody. So I was just like, I can't do this. Like, it's just too much. And for God to do this to me again, like after the first time, and to just put me in this position again, it's just too much to bear, or so I thought. But one of the nurses, her name was Nurse Wendy, she really convinced me to just not, she knew that I wasn't going to immediately cope with it, but she was like, that's your baby. Her final moments, you want to be there. I know you're angry, you know, but you don't want to look back. You don't want to regret this, have your husband standing there by himself. Nobody is comforting him. And, you know, you just so caught up in your anger. Find your strength. You so strong. I see you even here now. And they just poured on me like, you still so strong. Look at you. You still so beautiful. You holding up so well. And she convinced me, like she gave me strength. And even when I was there, I told them, get me off this floor. I don't want to be on the labor and delivery floor. I'm hearing ultrasounds go off. I'm hearing families clapping and crying. I'm hearing babies crying. I have to get off this floor. I'm leaving here with another box. I don't want to be on this floor. And they told me, we can send you up a few floors up to the women's, just regular women's general floor, but they don't know you like we do. We know your story. They're not going to take care of you like we are. They're not going to wrap you like we are. And they gave me the suite. They gave me the nurses suite that they have when they have emergencies that they're snowed in. They gave me the biggest room, and they said, we're going to do our best to make sure you don't hear anything. We're going to cover you. We're going to get you through this. And even though I had lost, I felt like I won. And it was like, I felt victorious because just how they wrapped me, and I had took a major L. Like it was, oh my God, I had lost my baby, but they covered me. And they called the funeral home and they told them my story. And when me and my husband showed up at the funeral home, they covered everything. And I will always be grateful. They covered the services. They gave us the urn. And me and my husband, we went to view our baby's body. It was just me and him. And we were like, should we have invited other people? We just didn't even know how to go about it the second time around. But I remember him telling me, like, this is so sacred. Nobody is supposed to be here but us three. Like, even in this, look at God. Like, and my husband, I thank God for his strength and his love of God to help get me through when I'll be honest and say I wasn't so pleased with God. So I wasn't happy with God, but he was still connected in those moments when I was just so enraged. And even when I wanted, I could even say honestly to this day, even when I wanted God to let me go, he would not. There were so many moments in my living room, I screamed out of anger, just why me? Like humiliation in front of hundreds of people, hundreds of students. On social media, I've announced this, everybody, why me? And I would be so angry and tell God, I don't want you because you're not here. My prayer's not even reaching you. I'm praying and it's like they're missing. I don't know what's going on, who's blocking them, but they're not reaching you at all, and I'll be honest, and I grew up in the church. I know God. I was raised religious. I had anger. I could not even speak God's name. I could not even open my mouth to pray. After the second time, I could not even open my mouth to pray. I was so angry, and I would hear God in my moments in the shower talking to me, and he would tell me, like, it's not for me, it's for other people. And now I see it, but then I didn't. And I would be so enraged. When I hear it, I didn't even want to process it. And I went about my life. After that, actually, a little before that, Santoria, she is my line sister. She's also my friend. And we went through very similar situations as far as marriage, having our daughters. And I was there for her when she had her first daughter and even her losses. And I remember when I had my losses, they couldn't really understand. I was in such a dark place. I was so dark. And I thank the people that loved me in my darkness, because it was such a dark place. It was no happiness. I had no optimism. I had no peace. I just waited for everything to beat me down and just accepted this dark place. But during our losses, we ended up assisting each other in our grieving processes and started our nonprofit organization called LAND. And it stands for Let's End Neonatal Deaths. And we were just talking and we were like, if we ever get on, even if we don't get on the other side of this, we're going to help other women that are like going through what we're going through, because we're struggling. And honestly, for me, your podcast helped save me because I didn't have a resource. That's what made me want to start a resource, because I looked and there was nowhere. And I'm not taking away from any of our counterparts, but I was in groups and women were having miscarriages and strangers were doing meal trains. On the next 2 weeks, they don't have to worry about food. They were sending care packages and picking up the kids. And I was just like, oh my God, I don't even have a person to whisper this to. I am broken. I don't even have a person to call and say, I am hurt. And they have meal plans for the next 2 weeks. They don't have to worry about cooking, transportation for their baby. Somebody has hired a cleaning services, just resources galore. And I just look like nothing, not even a person to whisper or cry to. So it's really good to have Santoria and for us to be able to start our organization. And through that organization, we pushed. And I thank God, because I was having losses. I was losing babies, but I was still pushing LAND. I was still having forums to encourage women, telling them to get checked out for preeclampsia, just all type of things. And people would never know, just looking at me. I'm in a sorority, just me pushing. I was so broken when I started LAND. I was just pushing through. I was crying so many nights. Following that loss, I had another loss in September 2020. I had 3 back-to-back losses, and I was going and having forums with people and giving resources to people and smiling. And I was broken. And I was angry at the people around me because I felt like they didn't know me. Like, how can you not see me? I'm broken. And the fact that you think I'm whole and you're encountering me every day, you don't know me. And it made me so enraged for almost everybody around me, because I felt like I have to embody this strength. Like, I'm hurting. And if you really know me the way you know me, beyond the smile, beyond the clothes, beyond the designer, beyond everything, I am broken. And the fact that I have to sit in this brokenness alone, but then they made a bell ring in my head, and God said, you're not alone, but you're going to sit in this brokenness with me, because even sitting your brokenness with them can't help you. And he really told me that you've been broken with them, and you're going to sit and be broken with them. And all you can do is transfer your broken energy to them. And they can do. It's some places you're going to go with this that your husband, your friends, your mother, nobody is going to go with you. It's going to be me and you. So you can be as mad as you want, but you still going to have to come back around and see me. And that's literally the way God was like talking to me. And he let me see, even in that moment, even in my disappointment of people not understanding, not really being there for me, like, you know, going about their life. I'm struggling with secondary infertility. You thinking stuff is okay with me because I have a baby. I'm struggling. And then every baby I have, I'm losing these babies. And it's not them. I'm getting autopsies back and they're perfectly well. It's me. Like, to carry that type of trauma, to know that I've traumatized hundreds of kids when they think of their teacher. And I will always be grateful because they never made me feel less than. For my first loss, I actually had a student that came up and he said, Miss Dixon, I'll be honest, they downstairs in the cafeteria, they talking about you. And I was like, oh my God. He said, but they told me to come up here and ask you, if you never want to talk about it again, we'll never bring it up again. And I looked at him and I said, I never want to talk about it again. They never brought it up. When I say they made me feel like Superwoman, you would have thought I never had a loss. And for them to be in 6th and 7th grade and be that mature, I came home and I cried, but I cried because I was like, okay, some of them will remember me as being strong and being this amazing influence. But when they look back, they're going to remember, like, you know, I lost a baby. Like, I lost a baby in a stage where they know I had a baby, you know, and I always think about, even though they put it into the back of their head to protect me, what did that do to them? Even my daughter, just watching her maneuver, like, just to see me be strong and knowing, I read her diaries when she talked about her siblings in heaven and being the only child and how it broke her, but she would never verbalize how we would walk past baby owls and she would say, Mom, are you okay? But basically saying, like, this broke you down and you pretending like it hasn't broken you down. So just the small things have always, the second time, stomach real big and I'm coming back, you know, like, what did it do to them? And I'll say that in those instances, I found allies. One of my work besties, we became work besties because she went through so many things. And when I came back, she let them know, look, it's a medical emergency. She doesn't want to talk about it. And that's kind of how I navigated. I put everything in the box during that time. I don't want to talk about it. If I'm going to survive this, I need to pack it away in the box. And during that time, so many things were happening. I lost my grandmother. I lost so many relatives, but I just had so much trauma that it was like I was so numb, pack it away in the box. And I didn't even do counseling during that time. It was just pack it away. And I never forget, after having my last loss in 2020, I was talking to one of my line sisters and I told her, maybe this isn't what God has for me. I'm constantly trying and trying and trying. I'm going to the fertility clinics over and over. I'm having losses. Things are not happening. Let me just be grateful. I may just have Kennedy. She's here. Just be grateful you have her, you know? And honestly, we were going straight into the pandemic and I was carefree. I wasn't thinking about having a kid or doing anything. My mom decided to let my daughter stay with her to do school virtually. And me and my husband, we hung out like teenagers. We were going to brunches. We were partying. We going late night McDonald's runs, everything. We have free childcare. We having a good time. And I ended up getting pregnant during that time. Naturally, I didn't have to go to the fertility clinic or anything. And what was crazy is that that was also during the time Spirit was canceling all their flights. So it's my husband's birthday and we were scheduled to go to Puerto Rico. But right before we were scheduled to go, it's crazy how funny how things work. Because we were going to go, but then they offered us, they said, well, we'll give you all $1,000 credit a piece if you don't get on this flight and wait till tomorrow. So we said, look, we only like 20 minutes, 15 minutes from from the actual airport. We'll definitely take that. We'll just come back. But the next morning when we came back, I was really sick. Like I wasn't doing well at all. Like I was bleeding. I didn't know why. I wasn't supposed to be bleeding. I was bleeding. I was throwing up and that was the height of COVID. So I was like, you know, I'm scared to go somewhere like, you know, not knocking Puerto Rico, but I'm not familiar with their medical system. I'm scared to go somewhere and I end up having COVID. And this is the height when it was scary. And, you know, I get stuck and something happens. So I can't go. So my husband was like, the hospital was like 15 minutes away. So he was like, well, just go to the hospital, try to get checked out, you know, get a COVID test. If you don't have COVID, we can still go. You know, maybe, you know, your cycle just wacky or whatever. So I'm kind of going along with it. So I go to the actual hospital and they run tests and everything. And they end up telling me that I'm pregnant. So I'm caught off guard by that, like, whoa. But then they tell me I'm having another subchorionic hematoma. So basically, every time I've gotten pregnant, I've bled during the pregnancy. So they're telling me it's like a threatened miscarriage. So I'm caught off guard because I'm ready to go to Puerto Rico. It's my husband's birthday weekend. I have to come back and tell him this. He's going to be totally caught off guard. Now I have anxiety because they telling me this is threatening miscarriage. So this could just go all type of ways. So I went back and I ended up telling my husband, and we had to cancel the trip. And luckily he was understanding. And we went through the pregnancy, and well, I was terrified. So the pregnancy was confirmed, and in about 6 weeks, even to take it back, before then, after I had my second loss, my doctor, Dr. Sonaport, looked me straight in the face. That's the one who told me about my cervix. And he told me, if you ever want to have another living baby again, you're going to have to get a transabdominal cerclage. If not, every time you get pregnant, you have a baby, you're going to lose the baby. So I didn't even know what a transabdominal cerclage was, but he referred me to a doctor here that worked at Mercy. So I did go to the consultation for him. But at that time, Santoria was in the Transabdominal Cerclage group that was on Facebook and was telling me about Dr. Haney. And Dr. Haney was like the world-renowned, like attack surgeon. And, you know, he did celebrities' wives, and people were coming from other countries to get attacked from him. So she told me about him. So I was prepping for him. So open enrollment came again. And this time I bumped my insurance up to the max. So this time I'm not asking permission. If I want to see a cardiologist tomorrow, I'm calling, I'm making an appointment, I'm going there. It's no referrals. And I took my insurance literally to that level. So I'm from Chicago naturally. So I was able to get my cerclage by Dr. Haney. I flew to Chicago. My family, my daughter and my husband knew I had videos. They knew I was going for the surgery. We were all on there cheering. I've documented all this. I have everything in video. And I went and I received my transabdominal cerclage, and my family was really supportive. I had Dr. Haney talking for like 30 minutes, describing the procedure, everything that was going on with my body, what he was going to do. And I was kind of like emotional because I didn't really believe that this could really happen, but I healed up really well. So I had already had the cerclage. So when I got pregnant, I didn't have to worry about the surgery. And when I got pregnant, my doctor was like, here we go. Dr. Sonaport said, you did everything we said. Now we're about to bring this baby into the world. And my appointments were really extensive. They were every 2 weeks. I had a home healthcare nurse, Nurse Lisa. Me and her took a lot of pictures. She came to my home. She gave me the McKinnon shot. So she gave me a shot every week so that I wouldn't go into preterm labor. She checked my blood pressure. They checked my cervix to make sure that everything was okay. They threw everything they could at it. If I ever felt like I had discharge, sometimes it would just be just normal discharge, but I would run in and they would stop everything to just throw everything at it. When I say cyanide, they wrapped their arms around me. Every resource they had, they gave me. And they even had it to where, so since I had the transabdominal cerclage, I'm basically so shut from the inside, which means that I can't deliver the baby vaginally. So I will only have to have a C-section. So I was scheduled for a C-section at 37 weeks and 2 days. And when I went in, the actual day I went in to get steroid shots because they wanted to make sure that even if they delivered my daughter early, that her lungs were going to be ready. Well, when I went in for steroid shots, I was really contracting really bad. And the doctors were like, no, this is the time. We got here, like my pregnancy, when I had lost my daughter, I lost her at 22 weeks and 2 days. I hemorrhaged really bad during that pregnancy. I almost died. It was really bad. And they were like, you know what you went through last time. Like, we can't risk that. We're going to take her now. She's ready. We were going to give her the shots. But right now, we don't even need to give her the shots. We need to get her out. We don't want your uterus to rupture. So I didn't have a bag. I was thinking about all the trivial things. I was so upset and crying. I don't have a bag for her. I don't have anything packed. I'm coming thinking I have more time. I don't have arrangements for my daughter. I was just up in arms, and they were like, you having this baby. And she's coming diva style. Like, she's here. And my doctor actually delivered her. And so I had my daughter, Ashlyn Brio Dixon, on March 6, 2022, my rainbow baby. I delivered her and so grateful to have her. I just was amazement of God and just who he was and how he can redeem and how he can restore. And just, I really felt like the angels clapped their hands. And when my daughter was born, I really felt like the clouds stopped, the rain really stopped, because I was in darkness. Like, I was in high functioning depression. People that know me, like, they like, you went, and oh my God, when they hear my story, even my family, they're shocked because I hid so much. In those 5 years, it was like the darkest time of my life. And it was so many times I didn't think like I could get through it. And all I could do was see my daughter Kennedy's face where I had, and she could push me through. but people really don't know. So to get to that and to really feel like my angels, they literally clap their hands and they say, okay, we're going to take this load off of you. We're going to allow it to be clear. You know, I just feel like I just thank God for that. And I know that my experiences with them, I'm changing lives. Like through my organization, there are so many women and men that reach out to me. Like for my angel baby's birthday, I gave out urns. We give out dinners. We're giving out dinners now to families that have babies in the NICU. There's so many women for PCOS. They reach out for so many resources. And I promised that when I looked at my second daughter after she took her last breath, that it would not be in vain. Like, I'm a damn good earthly mother. I do everything for my daughters. But I was like, I will not stop, because there are women that I see in these groups that don't have the resources I don't have. They don't have the insurance that I have. They don't have the job that I have. They don't have the husband that I have. They're losing their babies every day. They're writing in a group. They know they're going to lose their babies. They know they don't have a tag. They know that they don't have the insurance. They know they're dealing with infertility. They can't afford the panel. For me, my insurance was to the point where they could do IVF. They were willing to take it everywhere, but based off my insurance. And I'm grateful for my job and being a teacher, and they pay me amazing for that. But I'm thinking about so many women, so many Black women that are not going to get these things because they do not have these resources, and how it's not fair, and how we should have meal trains, and how we should have transportation, and how if a woman wants to scream, she should have a woman that she should be able to scream to. How you shouldn't just have to suffer and just not have a clue. How you shouldn't be educated and go to school to try to fight barriers and still be discriminated against and still lose your baby. How it's just nothing set out there for you. And that enough has put me like Liam Nelson. It has made me to the point that I am so, my rage, because prison orange don't look good on me, so I cannot go to jail. But my rage is so strong that every day I wake up and I can fight for another woman to have a resource, to have a family, to before she has a baby, to ensure that her baby is safe, that she has a chance when her baby gets here. I'm going to do it. And their names will never be in vain. They will always live through me. And that's where I am. And if they check out Lynn, they probably be like, oh, this lady is on here posting crazy. She's on here going nuts. Yes, I reach out to people. I go into the DM. Sometimes they may be like, who is this weird lady in my DM? Sometimes people haven't responded. Some people have reached out and said, I needed somebody. I just didn't know where to go. So I am all for providing resources to Black women before they get pregnant, while they're pregnant, postpartum. I had my postpartum test and they had said I had postpartum depression. And I'm like, damn right, I have postpartum depression. I'm not sad, but I can't sleep at night. Yes, I can't go to sleep and I'm wired and I'm looking to see if this baby's chest is going up and down. The last 3 babies I had, 2 of them came in the box. I'm absolutely not able to sleep. Yes, I'm a maniac. It has settled now and I feel more confident and I feel like I'm trusting and she's going to be okay. But even navigating through things like that, and we should know that it's okay. And if I have to heal in public for those people that's healing in private and they're scared to talk, somebody has to do it. And in our communities, like they're doing it in other communities. Like somebody, hey, if I have to be the martyr, I don't want to be. I even told God that. Why this? Out of everything you could put on me, you put this on me? Are you serious? And even me, just who I was, just feeling like that could never be me. That could never happen to me. Like I'm watching this happen to other people, but not I. And to experience that, I'm going to fight for other women. And I'm here to let a woman know that will listen to this podcast that is crying every night like me, that does not have hope, that does not think it's possible, that does not know where to go, that like you may not find the resource. And if you don't find it, create it. And together, like we can impact other women, but you have to start somewhere and you have to know there's hope. And I would never tell you, and I hate when people say, well, just don't think about getting pregnant and it'll happen. I'm a science teacher. Things don't work like that. I'm going to be honest. No, it doesn't just happen like that. I would never tell a person anything like that. But just know during your journey that you're not alone and that there are other women that are doing what you're doing, and God is able. He's able. And after 3 losses, I didn't even trust God. I'll be honest. God, able, what? Now, even when I was pregnant, I wouldn't even walk past the baby aisle. I had my actual baby shower and I had a video, and for my baby shower, I did a gender reveal And I shocked everybody because when I started showing the videos, they were like, congratulations, it was a girl. But I actually was showing them videos from my losses. They actually saw my babies, like me holding my babies, like pictures of my baby in her final resting place. And they all cried. They boo-hooed. And at the end, it said, but I made it to the end. Here's my rainbow. And everybody, and I have it recorded, they boo-hooed. They were shocked. Even my brother, so many people said, we know you lost babies, but we didn't know you lost babies like that. Like, oh my God, like you were in that, like to see that and for them to see that but I felt like to some felt like that may have been like a trigger warning. But to me, this is my story and I can't be ashamed. Unfortunately, these are the cards that I was dealt. And I'm in a sorority. I'm in several sororities. This happens to be one. And I don't want to be a member of it. But now that I am, I'm not going to be ashamed. Because if I'm ashamed, the woman behind me, she's going to be ashamed and she's going to be broken. And I remember sharing a video for Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month where Michelle Obama said the worst thing we do to each other as women is not talk about our bodies and the way they work. And guess what? And the way they don't work either. Because there were times my body worked and a lot of times it didn't. So I rolled the dice and it failed me more than it did. So this is a tricky body. You know, I look myself in the mirror like, I don't know. Sometimes I don't know how you're going to go. You know, you act good certain times and other times you might surprise me. So I got to be prepared. But just knowing those things and just having resources like your podcast and letting women hear the stories. And yes, you can battle PCOS and subchorionic hematomas and secondary infertility. I caught COVID in the height of my pregnancy. So many obstacles were just getting thrown at me. And I'm not going to lie, I was getting hit in the ring, but I wasn't getting knocked out though. Those blows were hitting me, but I was standing. But I was like, oh my God, why would you do this? I'm finally here. Why would you let me catch COVID while I'm pregnant? Like, I went through all this. I'm constantly throwing up, and my cervix is incompetent. It had to be stitched from the inside. Just what else you have for me, God? But I honestly felt like now my mother used to always say, it's one thing to tell somebody about experience, but it's another thing to have lived it and to share your story with them. So I don't want to be the poster child for, hey, I've had secondary infertility. Hey, I've had PCOS. I have an incompetent cervix. I have premature rupture of the membrane, hypermesia. Hey, I throw up too. Or what about having COVID-19? But being able to assist the woman and being able to guide her and let her know, on top of depression, on top of facing a world, like you can get through these things, you can overcome. And sometimes knowing that overcoming may look different than what you thought. I never thought I would have to have a transabdominal cerclage to have a baby. And even my doctor was going from beyond that to surrogacy. He was taking it up a notch because if you can't do it, there are a lot of steps, there are a lot of ways. So I just want women, especially Black women, to just not get discouraged and start on your journey, start on your story. So I always say with being in church that faith without works is dead. So I could have prayed and prayed that God, when I have another baby, I hope this baby lives. I got angry at God because I prayed when I was pregnant the first time and my baby died. I prayed when I got the transabdominal cerclage and my baby died. All the praying in the world, as much as I love God, did not save me in that situation. So I could have not taken my doctor's advice, got pregnant again, never had the cerclage, and prayed and lost that baby. Prayer without works is dead. No, God brought my doctors into the situation with the knowledge they needed to give me, along with my prayer, to send me to the professionals I needed to go to give me the team that I needed to help strengthen me, to deliver me. So I don't want, I love prayer, but I don't want a woman to just sit at home and just pray it away. You can pray, but on top of that, God will give you resources. Prayer without works is there. He will give you resources. He will give you professionals. He will give you people that will guide you, that can assist you in your journey from the beginning, whether you don't know about whether you're going to get tested in reference to infertility or get your eggs preserved, to the middle, or even to the end. So I'm just encouraging a woman to just stay encouraged, stay active, ask questions, advocate for yourself. Don't be ashamed of using resources. Reach out to organizations like Sisters in Loss. Land is here. We're here. We're doing some amazing things this month for recognizing Prematurity Awareness Month. We're giving away 2 dinners to 2 NICU families that currently have babies in the NICU, because we know how important that time is, and they may not be able to dedicate that to actually cooking or serving the family. We're doing a Writers Wednesday on November 13th. We're talking to authors, Black authors that have created books about their NICU experiences. There's so many different resources that women can utilize. We're talking to Miracle Mama on November 16th, so she can talk about her experience. In December, we're having a holiday resource party where we're bringing just neonatal and maternal health and women's health resources all in one spot. We're playing games, introducing people to actual resources, and also ending out with a vision board party. So there are so many things that we want to give. And I know how it is, because some women can be shy. When I had my loss, I'll be honest, I didn't start counseling until after I had my rainbow baby. And that made me, wow, like, you were going through all that and you didn't do counseling? I couldn't face it. I couldn't unpack counseling and deal with that and still function. I had to do one thing at a time. Either I'm going to function or I'm going to unpack this. And I'm not ready yet. So after I had my daughter, I started counseling, and I had to unpack a lot. Not only things dealing with her, my babies, I had losses, family members that I love that I just didn't grieve. It was a lot. So I will also say too, don't take the rap that I took. There are resources for you that can help you throughout the process, so you don't have to have it all dumped on you and feel like your back is going to break because you can no longer carry the load. Delegate your load. There are resources. There are organizations that are here and they want to help. And if I could do anything from my story and my losses, I am definitely going to make a change. And I'm honestly just getting started. And I mean that wholeheartedly. And I'm talking about legislation, everything. There are going to be laws. The bells are going to be changed. Black women are going to feel a lot more comfortable going to doctors, and they're going to feel a lot more comfortable with their babies being treated when I'm all said and done. Like, I'm going to be a problem, and in a good way. But listen, it's gonna be some good noise being rang, but I'm about to ring some bells.
Yes. I love it. I don't even have no more questions. I don't have no questions to ask. You just dropped the mic. Your story and your testimony and your journey. And I think the biggest thing that I take away, obviously, a lot of the things that you went through, all the losses that you had, even with the transabdominal cerclage, you were working through this. Like, you were working your regular job, but you also started this nonprofit through all of this before you even had your rainbow. So I just am in awe of how God has worked through you. And as you said, you're just getting started. You have not reached where God has you to go with your organization. And I am excited about what is to come and how Sisters in Loss can partner with Lynn to continue to carry on this mission to save Black moms and babies. So I would love for you to leave your information for everybody, your organization, and then where people can get in contact with you after this episode.
Yes, so I am an author and I have my own self-publishing company as well. So that is Spoken Hearts 2018 on Instagram. And I also have land. So that is land.now on Instagram. And it's also Land Now on Facebook as well. And I'm doing some things now in reference to my rainbow baby related to my Spoken Hearts company. So I'm a children's book author. I've already dropped 3 books. And I am now going to drop something related to my rainbow baby that I've been working on. So I'm really excited about that. That will release actually next year. So we have a lot of things just rolling out through Land. Most people can really catch me there because I'm there spearheading things as Spoken Hearts. We're gearing up for our re-release and our introduction of some things related to my rainbow baby on next year.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sonya, for being on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Light. This has been such a great conversation, and I think people needed to hear this at this time. So you all definitely go give her a follow. I'll leave all her information in the description box below.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening to today's episode. For show notes, go to sistersinloss.com. To stay connected with us and join the Sisters in Loss community and receive my weekly newsletter, please go to sistersinloss.com/newsletter. That is sistersinloss.com/newsletter. Please rate and review this episode, and I will talk to you next week.